Good morning. Well, nice little select group here. That's nice. We can have a conversation as well as a presentation. I just want to start. My name's Martin Ratcliffe from Vodafone IoT. So I'll explain it in a bit more, but Vodafone Internet of Things is a kind of 100% owned company, part of Vodafone Group, and we do all the kind of machine-to-machine, device-device connection. But let me just start. So this is not my team, this is my family, because I believe that work is not all about work, it's life as well. My wife and 3 kids, I'm very proud of them getting on with their adult lives. In fact, my eldest son is now my AI advisor, which is really good. I don't know if he wants payment, but he's very useful. So my role is Vodafone IoT market insights and competitive analysis. So I also work on strategy. I'm not the head of strategy, but I feed into that, which is very useful. I've actually got 2 team members based in London. I'm based in Munich, but my 2 team members are based in London, and that's where a lot of the people are for Vodafone IoT. I've been with Vodafone about 14 years in various roles in IoT, strategy, business development, partner management, and then the last 4 or 5 years been looking after the market research and insights function. I'm British, German, married, based in Munich, as I said. My role, I mean, I would love to say I spend all my day doing market research, but more and more I find myself in the kind of recommendations business. You know, my execs come to me and say, what should we do and why? And in a way, market research is becoming like a means to an end. You know, I used to spend a lot of time just reading and producing and summarizing, but now it's like, well, what are we actually going to do? And that's the kind of topic of my talk, really, about how we can do a bit less market research and focus on the really important stuff. Let me just tell you a bit about the Internet of Things. You may be familiar with it. It was a big hype probably about 10 or 15 years ago. In one way, it's very simple. So there's a lot of organizations, companies that want to connect their products. They could be automotive companies, healthcare device companies, logistics companies, anything, any mechanical, any product at all, really, about connecting them. And then in order to connect them, you need a bit of communications hardware, like a module, a SIM card, and then in the middle, you've got the connectivity. That's where the magic happens, where you can get the data out of the product and transport it to where you want to take it. There's also a bit of software and customer dashboards and integration into the customer system. So from a technical point of view, it's very complex because you've got a load of security, a lot of processes involved in that. But at one level, it's fairly simple. The product, some hardware, connectivity, and software, backed up with all the commercial implementation, operations, and support. Let me tell you a bit about where we fit in Vodafone IoT. So we're clearly the bit in the middle. Vodafone IoT, we've been around as an IoT division for about 12 years. I joined in 2011 when it was just starting. It's actually a global business, as I said, part of Vodafone Group. We've got about 600 or 700 people globally who are dedicated to IoT, and we work through our own network operating countries, so our owned networks in various countries, and also through partner networks as well. We've got a lot of customers. We've got over 200 million global IoT connections that we support. So that makes us, outside of China, the largest IoT connectivity provider. And our competitors are people like AT&T, Verizon, Deutsche Telekom in Europe, as well as the US, and Telefonica. So those are just a few, to name a few other big competitors of ours. As I said, part of Vodafone Group and dedicated on IoT. Let me just talk about market forecasts, and let's get onto the interesting stuff. So we spend a lot of time understanding and trying to work out how big the market is, because the market for connectivity is big and it's been growing nicely for the last sort of 10, 15 years. But I'll take you back to 2010. So there was a great report by Ericsson. It wasn't just Ericsson, there was also Huawei and a few other telcos. In 2010, they said, the IoT market is great. By 2020, there'll be 50 billion connected devices globally. And you think, wow, 50 billion, that's a really big number. If you think about it, that was almost 7 connected devices for every human being on the planet, which is like, wow, that's a very ambitious market forecast. So let's just do a quick survey in the room. So who's got a Bluetooth headset? Everyone, right? Okay. Who's got a car which is sort of less than 5 years old? Then it's probably connected. Who's got a connected toothbrush that tells you how you're doing when you clean your teeth? Okay. Who's got a connected fridge that orders food for you when? Okay. So just in a very quick survey, if we say, you know, as well as all the other things, maybe some speakers, you've got connected products in your house. All of us here, maybe we've got kind of 5 or 6 maximum connected products in our lives, maybe. But of course, we're not representative of the global population, so this 50 billion was a really big, ambitious figure. And people believed it. I mean, this is a great example where a market forecast was put out by several reputable companies, and people believe it. So what happened? It kick-started the market, which was really good. It drove a lot of investment into IoT, into the hardware, into the software, and into the connectivity as well. But the other thing is it really did raise expectations. Maybe in similar, we're going through AI at the moment. The expectations became massively high about exactly how big this market would get and so quickly. And of course, over time, it stabled out. We still haven't got to 50 billion connected devices globally. But I guess we're getting there now, even a bit 5 years on. I should say connectivity, when I talk about IoT connectivity, there's several different forms of that. There's kind of, you know, fixed line, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, mobile communications. There's all different ranges of connectivity. At Vodafone IoT, of course, we focus on the mobile, the licensed mobile connectivity part of that. Anyway, just a good example of how a great forecast, everyone gets very excited, goes away and spends a lot of money, and then kind of gets a bit disappointed when they realize the growth is not there. So what have we done? I mean, staying on the topic of market forecasts, this is still really interesting because a lot of analysts kind of still produce forecasts which are overambitious. In fact, no analyst has ever produced a forecast that underestimates what's actually happening. And again, you may find that in your businesses too. And why is that? You know, because analysts go around and talk to providers, and providers say, oh yeah, everything's going well, we're doing really good, business is fantastic. And then, not surprisingly, all the analysts conclude, you know what, the market is doing well, everyone's doing fantastic, it's growing like crazy, which of course is never the reality. So what we did is say, well, okay, we've got to build our own market model, and we've got to get some inputs from not just market analysts, but from financial advisors, from our own data, which makes sense as well, and of course from competitors, because competitors, along with us, make up a big part of the market. So we've actually, a long time ago, about 10 years ago, we started our own market model, which was started off as a big spreadsheet, and it's been developed from there, but it really helps us to model the market in what we think is far more accurate way. And we can use, for example, our own market share as a check, because initially, if we put in our figures into an analyst market forecast, it would give us like, you know, 10% market share, which was not the case. We knew our market share was higher. So we built a more realistic model. And also, of course, it reflects the way that we do business. For an example, you know, we sell a SIM card to an automotive company based in Germany. They stick it in their car, but then the car is exported to another country. So the SIM card, the connectivity is actually used in another country. So we built a model, a market model, which really reflected the way that we work. What's the result of this? Well, it allows us to plan better in terms of sales and financial. results, it enables us to come up with a better strategy. And interestingly, our strategy to start with, if I go back to this slide, our strategy to start with was like, okay, we're going to do everything. We're going to start with connectivity, and we're going to get into the hardware, we're going to get into software. That strategy failed in Vodafone. We tried it, and we wanted to do it, moving right across the value chain, but we've come back to focusing only on connectivity. And that, that has partly been driven by this market model, which said, actually, the bit that we want to focus on, the bit that's growing most and steadily, is the connectivity bit. So that really, overall, the market model has really helped us focus on what we do. I mean, probably 30% of my job and my team's work is looking at the market, because we need to understand how fast and how big that's going to get. Moving on, what else are we doing then, other than market modeling? Well, we're doing a lot of competitor analysis, not surprisingly. When we started, there were just a few other telcos doing what we do, but now we've got a whole range of telcos. We've got a lot of mobile virtual network operators offering IoT connectivity. We've got a lot of SIs, a lot of companies themselves. Even some of the automotive companies have bought MVNOs and are doing that themselves. I would say we look at our customers. I mean, many of our customers, in fact, some of them were in the room yesterday. Hyundai was presenting. They're a major customer for us in Europe. We've just won another big deal with them. So if anyone drives a Hyundai car in the next 5 years, it will have a Vodafone IoT SIM card in it. Also, Kathy, we're one of your suppliers for connectivity for smart metering. Luca, we're going to have a chat about how we can help connect some of your products at Piaggio. So we do support a lot of companies in various different industries. So we look at our customers. We've got a market insights community that really ties into our own salespeople, commercial people, because as we learned yesterday and as we talked about, there's a lot of market insights in the heads of our colleagues, and trying to get that information out is really important, but really difficult, because you know what salespeople are like. They just want to do the deal and go off, and then you talk to them, they go, oh yeah, in the customer meeting, they talked about this competitor, and they can offer this, and we try and gather that. We try and do what we can to incentivize our colleagues to give us more information. One problem we got, and it's really honest, we need to get a lot of more internal information, because if someone says, okay, what's your market share? I go, okay, well, tell me exactly how many connections we have in automotive in Germany. So getting our own internal information is pretty tricky, because it's in disparate databases or spreadsheets around the business. It's really, really difficult to get hold of that information. So by getting more market and more competitor intelligence, it highlights the fact that our own information is really not that structured or consistent or complete enough to really make the picture as full as we can. Another challenge we have is that, of course, many of our stakeholders have got completely different requirements. So the execs come to me and say, what should our strategy be and why? And then a salesperson will come and say, tell me about all the competitors in automotive or smart metering, who can offer what. And then a product manager will come to me and say, I need to know exactly what sort of product to build. Tell me exactly what's needed in the market for this specific use case. So we get a lot of variety of stakeholder requirements. Not surprisingly, it's difficult to kind of have one presentation, one report that fits everyone's requirements. But we do ultimately try and keep the customer in mind, because we keep asking ourselves, where can the customer go to get what we're offering them? And that's how we uncover additional competitors, and also makes us understand where else our customers can really go. So we try and keep a very open mind. In terms of what's next, I thought I was going to try and do this presentation without mentioning AI, but I failed, actually, because we are now developing an AI agent based out of Copilot. And honestly, it's come out of a very small project. We had a graduate who was working for us, and this is imagine a global team of 650 people. We hired a graduate, and he started playing around with Copilot, and within a few weeks, he'd built a simple agent that is essentially a kind of bound Copilot version where we can start bringing in all of our internal information and market information. I'll show you it later. I can do a quick demo of it later if anyone is interested to see it. But it's really good, you know. We know that it's just bound for use by people within Vodafone IoT, so it's not a kind of public AI model. And maybe many of you are doing something similar, but it was really, really quick and effective and basically free to do. And what we're doing is putting all of our analyst reports, because I should have said we do subscribe to many market analysts. We use specialists like ABI, Transformer Insights, Analysis Mason, who do very specific analysis on the IoT market. So we drag all those into this bound AI model, and we can use that to query, and it's made things a lot quicker already. We've only got a few months of market analyst reports in there, but it's making our queries and analysis a lot quicker. Again, it's for use across Vodafone IoT, so only in Vodafone IoT and not for people outside of our particular company. And it does lead to really, you know, a lot faster access analysis, and it allows us to spend more time on the really important stuff. And again, at the moment, our people, my team, 2 of them, they're kind of checking the output, and we're keeping thinking, okay, when are we going to be able to trust what comes out of this model fully? And we heard this in the panel discussion yesterday, that, okay, we just need to keep monitoring it. We can't just take the output and send it to one of our execs without really checking it. But the question is, how long is that going to go on for, and what else we can do? I thought I'd just finish with just some key learnings and takeaways from not just what we're doing, but my experience over the last few years in working in market and competitor intelligence. And again, some of these reflects what was, I thought, a great panel discussion yesterday, that we should be focusing as analysts more on, you know, the genuine analysis, the being curious, actually communicating what we find in a more efficient way. And this is what I found works for me over the last few years. So one thing, start with the result and move backwards. I always go to my stakeholders and say, look, what do you want this information for? What do you want the analysis to tell you? I even get one guy coming to me and he says, I've got this hunch that we should do this, this, and this. Can you go away and tell me my hunch is correct, or tell me why it's wrong? So I really go and talk to our stakeholders and say, what do you want, and what are you going to do with this information, this analysis, if I do it for you? And just doing that saves a lot of time, a lot of effort. Getting input from reputable sources. Of course, we use specialist market analysts and financial advisors. I still think that's really important. I mean, someone said to me the other day, they said, how good do you think AI is? And he said, it's probably about as good as it's going to be if you talk about referencing genuine sources, because in the future, if you go and do a query and the references are just other AI-generated reports, then you can't rely that it's actually an original source. So I think getting input from reputable sources is really important, whether you have direct access or through an AI model. I think it's really, really key. Getting input from customer-facing colleagues. We do that through our community. Salespeople, commercial people, anyone customer-facing, they have a lot of market insights in their heads. It's just a case of getting it out of them. And then I come on to communication. I do also a bit of work on kind of communication, how to write and talk effectively within the company, which is often a problem, as you can imagine. So clear and effective language, I mean, whether it's English or German or whatever, there's so much benefit of getting a clear message across. And as you all know, if you want to write something long, it takes not long at all, but if you want to write something short and concise, you've got to spend a lot more time on it. And I think that's where us as kind of market intelligence professionals can really focus on that a bit more. Focusing on relevant facts and figures. I get people who come to me and say, oh, this is interesting, and I need to tell my execs about this, and this is really interesting information. I go, well, what's relevant? think a bit more, we should all think a bit more like prosecution lawyers, where our job is to go and nail someone with the two or three undisputable facts and figures that's going to convince our execs about what to do. Be bold and direct and confident. I always say, well, if something's 80%, it's 100%. If something's 20%, it's 0. So, be bold and say, the market is going to grow by 10%. Don't say, analysts expect the market to grow by 10%. Just say, do it, and then you can always quote your source at the end. Reuse what works and don't change it. So we all like to, summarize our results and keep improving it. My exec came to me once and said, why did you rewrite that slide? And I said, well, I thought I could make it better. And he said, no, the board has accepted it. Don't change it, because if you change it, they'll get confused. So just stick to what works. Consistent terminology. A good example, is automotive a vertical, a sector, or a market? I mean, these words do matter, so pick terminology which works for you and stick with it. And then storytelling. We heard this yesterday. I think there's great value, particularly with some of our execs, in painting a story where you have a situation, a complication, some options, and a resolution and a recommendation. And that's where I started, that we should spend more time on that storytelling and coming up with the real kind of answers for many of our stakeholders. And of course, experiment and use AI to improve efficiencies. So that's it. I think I'm more or less on time, but very happy to take any comments or questions from you.
Thank you, Martin.